Right everybody, welcome back to the channel, and I've got some news for you. Maxfli are back. So where on earth has Maxfli been? This is their first iron release in over 30 years, and I've got with me the XC2. They've also released an XC3 version, which is a bit more in the game improvement category, whereas this sits very much in the player's distance category, although there is a bit of a twist, which I'll explain as we go through the video. So Maxfli, for those of us who remember, had some incredible irons back in the day. The real purists will remember the Aussie blades, the Australian blades, and there was always a guy at a golf club I played at who had a set of Aussie blades and was a real ball striker. If they had those clubs, you should not have played them for money, that is for sure. I also remember irons like the Revolution irons, which is a slightly different category, but they really just made some great product and they just seemed to kind of disappear. And Maxfli as a brand actually went through a few different iterations of ownership. It got passed around a little bit until in 2003 it was acquired by TaylorMade, who actually wanted a lot of the patents from the golf ball side of things to help re-establish and grow their market share within the golf ball sector. And it's done really, really well for them. However, once they'd kind of got what they needed from it in terms of patents, they sold off what was left of Maxfli to Dick's Sporting Goods, where it's sat for a while now as an in-store and online only brand within Dick's Sporting Goods portfolio. So I said earlier I was pleasantly surprised when these arrived, and call me superficial, but here's why. I wasn't actually going to make this video, but when I popped a little post on social media, my DMs were packed out with heart eyes, flames, and it wasn't about me, it was about these golf clubs, and I can see why. I'm a sucker for a very minimalist and clean looking an iron, and these just absolutely epitomise that. This kind of brushed matte finish I think looks absolutely fantastic. And there's something about how sparingly they've logoed this. The Maxfli logo looks great. And also I love when iron companies just use one color on their branding. I think it looks really premium and very sophisticated. When you go down into the playing position, they've got the proportions really very, very good here. The longer irons I think look a bit better than the shorter irons. For me, in the playing position, the shorter irons look a little bit angular and the toes a little bit high for me, but those longer irons look absolutely great. So overall, the aesthetic package is a very exciting one, and it made me want to learn a bit more about the tech. Now I said these sat in a player's distance category, but with a slight twist, and the slight twist for me is in the construction. A lot of the irons we see in that compact distance or player's distance category tend to be hollow bodied with high flexing faces and maybe filled with some sort of foam. Well, what we've got here is slightly different. This is more of a single forging, although it goes through a few processes to get to its final stage. So the first three stages of forging is just to create the basic shape of a club head. Then the fourth stage of the forging refines that a little bit more, but actually creates some little gaps in the head where they can insert some tungsten and ceramic, which take care of some of the requirements of the CG, the perimeter weighting and the feel. And then the final stage of forging covers that hole up, packs it all back in tight for a nice, essentially overall one-piece forged club. But if you're going to enter the player's distance category, then you're going to have to take on some of the real big boys of the game. And probably for me, still the daddy of that category is the TaylorMade P790. Now, we've got some very comparable lofts here. So the TaylorMade P790, the 7.9 for example, is 30 degrees. This is 30.5. And when you go through the set increments, it is very similar. So what I've done is I've brought with me some P790s. So I think this will be a great chance to hit some balls away and compare some data. Okay, so let's get some away. I've got the Maxfli in my hands first. I've literally never hit a shot with this, so I'm actually intrigued to see what we're gonna get here. Got 7 iron, let's get some away and get some initial impressions. Wow, that felt fantastic. It's a good first start. That was a really interesting. So in terms of numbers for that first one, that was a 180 carry, which is pretty good for me. I'm kind of a high 170s with my own clubs, my own 7 iron. So there's a bit of extra on that. And a decent spin rate there of 6,300 revs. It was soft, but not buttery soft like a blade. It felt like there was a bit of spring to it. It felt like there was a bit of power in there. It was kind of a springy soft. That felt absolutely fantastic, truth be told. That felt flushed, so I'm gonna suggest that's gonna have a bit more carry on it that time. So yeah, we're up at 187 there, so that's a really meaty strike. Spin rate, really good though. 6,600 revs, nearly 6.7, so that's plenty of spin to keep it in the air and give me a nice, pretty steep descent angle there, 49.7. So that's something to look out for in this category. Sometimes when we go stronger in loft, you can benefit in terms of you being flattered by the distance number, but if you lose that descent angle and that spin, then you're not going to hold any greens. So that's really interesting. Now that will be interesting because that felt quite significantly out of the heel, but that's done really, really well for what is essentially a misstruck shot. That's given me 181 yards of carry, spin 6,900 revs. That's something really encouraging for me because quite often when I do go into this category, as I said, that spin drops off and my overall performance, although it can look very flattering on a launch monitor, my overall performance can come down a little bit, but that's a genuinely very impressive start for the Maxfli club. So let's hit some with the P790 and compare those numbers. Right, sorry to interrupt, but I hope you're enjoying this video and I hope you're enjoying this look at these Maxfli irons. If you are, if you could hit the like button, it really helps us, and subscribe to the channel. Also comment down below if you ever played Maxfli product and which ones did you play? Yeah, it's very different. An impressive output there. We've got 190 yards of carry, lower on spin, so 5.9 in the spin there, sub 6,000s, but just going purely on feel to start with. I've been a big fan of this new P790 because some of the older ones to me have just felt a little bit clicky, a little bit tingy. They've done a really good lot of work on the acoustics and the feel of the P790, making what was, as I said, kind of for me, the leader in this category even better. But the difference between those two clubs, even straight away, which I'm going to investigate a little bit further, this does feel springier, it does feel hotter off the face, and I guess that is to be expected. This is, as I was talking about, one of those hollow bodied clubs, filled, so it's going to have a slightly more flexing face, and I could genuinely feel that at impact there. So that was another good pass at it there. I feel that's gone a long, long way. That, yeah, 192 yards. Spin's gone up a little bit there, 6,179 revs. So we've got a slightly different flight profile going on here. I'm gonna be really interested to get into these numbers a little bit deeper in a second. We just hit one more. So that was a touch lower on the face, probably a couple of grooves lower than I've been striking it. But from TaylorMade, as I expect, I mean, I've kept a good, considering as low as that was on the face, 183 yards of carry, 6.1 of spin again, so very consistent in terms of the spin numbers there. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna go through, I've got the 4-iron of each model here, and I've got the pitching wedge of each model here, because I'd like to get a full flavour of the whole set. So I'm gonna hit a few away with all of them, and I'm gonna get back to you with the data now. Well, that was a really interesting data gathering session. I'm not quite sure what to think yet, so I'm going to kind of make my mind up as I go through. Starting from the bottom, so we're going to start with the pitching wedge. The main numbers I want to see here are spin, ball speed, and distance. So ball speed off the Maxfli pitching wedge, I was getting nearly 115 miles per hour, 114.7, versus the TaylorMade P790 pitching wedge, basically 112. So a good 2.5 plus ball speed difference there. I will caveat that by saying the Maxfli is a little bit stronger in pitching wedge. So this is something I'm going to talk about in a bit, but you've got to be wary of. So the Maxfli pitching wedge coming in at 43 versus the P790 at 44, we'd expect to see some ball speed drop off there. Because of that loft difference, I'm seeing less spin out of the Maxfli, kind of 8,900 revs versus 9.5 from the P790. And I'm seeing 7 yards more distance from the Maxfli pitching wedge, 150 yards I was carrying that pitching wedge on average, which is not a normal number for me. Whereas with the TaylorMade P790, 143, which is still a strong number for me, coming from what I normally play in. So those are the differences in wedges. Yet when we go to the 7-iron data, it's almost the other way around. So, or it gets a lot more similar. The ball speeds, 129.5 with Maxfli, 131.5 with TaylorMade. So 2 miles an hour jump in TaylorMade. 6,600 and a bit revs from the Maxfli, basically 6,000 from the TaylorMade, so less spin coming from the TaylorMade there, which is opposite to what it was in the pitching wedge. And don't forget, these 7-irons are very comparable in loft. In terms of carry, I was getting more out of the P790 in 7-iron, 188 yards versus 183 yards. Finally, in the longer irons, a pretty distinct difference here. So again, it's gone slightly the other way, whereas the Maxfli was stronger in the shorter irons, the TaylorMade is slightly stronger in 4-iron, 20 degrees of loft versus Maxfli's 21 degrees. Because of that, I was seeing quite a big jump in terms of ball speed. 147.9 from the TaylorMade versus 141.3 from Maxfli. Spin numbers were basically identical, 4,200 revs, but I was seeing quite a significant jump in yardage in that TaylorMade iron. So 218 yards of carry from my Maxfli 4-iron, 231 yards, which is massive, from that TaylorMade 4-iron. So a couple of takeaways there for me. Number one, you've got to be so careful with lofts. If you're changing irons, you need to know what you're going through, not just that 7-iron number, because a lot of people, and I'm guilty of that in some of my reviews, I'll let you know what the 7-iron loft is, but not all manufacturers create those increments equally, so you might get some spread here like we have in this particular scenario. That's one thing I want to take away. Another thing I'd like to take away is the feel difference. I alluded to it as I was going through. The Maxflis are giving me a much more kind of traditional soft forged feel. So those of you, if you're thinking of going into the player's distance category, I kind of want you to think about which way you're coming into that from. If you're coming into it as someone who's maybe traditionally played forged clubs or blades, but you're getting a bit older and you're losing some distance, so you need a bit of a boost, I think that's a really potentially good gateway into that category for you, because you're going to get that distance leap, but you're not going to sacrifice that more soft forged feel that you might become used to. The TaylorMade gives you that very much more, it almost feels like a hybrid. You've got that hollow bodied, face flexing, a bit of power, and you can really sense that. And it is an exceptional feeling iron, and I still think 100% it's the category leader in terms of player's distance. But if you're someone who's maybe coming from the game improvement side of moving into the player's distance category, maybe your game's improving and you want something a little bit more playery looking and compact, but you don't want to give up that distance you've gotten used to, then the feel of the TaylorMade might be more suitable for you. So overall, I have to say I was seriously impressed with this Maxfli XC2 iron. It's gone up against the best of the best, arguably, within this category, and produced some really comparable data, but giving me a really good alternative in terms of feel at impact. And I'll tell you what else has really impressed me. It's very sensibly priced, which you tend to see in this direct-to-consumer market at $999. There's not much to dislike here. Great looks, great feel. Maxfli, where have you been for so long?